2, 1.
Welcome to the opening ceremonies of the Games of the 23rd Olympiad at Los Angeles.
Let's cross now to Wally Foreman and Dick Plug at the start of the 79-kilometre women's road cycling race.
Yes, thank you, John. And as you can see, the starters are on the line for an historical event at these Olympic Games, the first women's cycling event ever held in the Olympics. And it's the women's road race on this splendid course at Mission Viejo, some 70 kilometres south of Los Angeles. We'll get a good look at some of Los Angeles' more expensive real estate during the course of this race. The circuit is 15 kilometres in length, and the competitors will be required to complete 5 laps of this circuit. It's been described as a very difficult circuit because it's got 2 hills in it, 2 very different hills. One's steep and one is quite long. So one is for the sprinters, one is for the stayers. The weather forecast is important here. Forecast high today of 26 degrees or 78 degrees Fahrenheit, but good air conditions, which is just as important here in Los Angeles. As I said, the first cycling event ever held in the Olympic Games for women, and it promises to be a most interesting race. 45 competitors in the field. There is no Australian, and each country is limited to 4 riders. Dick Plug is with me, a bronze medalist at the Olympic Games in Melbourne in 1956. And Dick, this is going to be a very competitive event.
Yes, it'll be very, very interesting. The favourite, as they line up at the start there on the front row, is probably Connie Carpenter. Connie Carpenter of the USA is they're away, the women's world pursuit champion. In fact, the West German is the one that's quickly moved away. The West Germany have sent a very strong team. One of them of particular interest is one of the youngest in the field. They're coming up to the first hard right-hander. Now, we predict that in the men's road race, this is going to be quite a spectacle because there's going to be 130 bike riders trying to get around that right-hander as they climb the first small incline as they go away from the start. The outside girl there is probably Marianne Berglund. Will take a little while to pick up the colours, but the current world champion is Marianne Berglund. Should be quite easy later in the race. She's a blonde-headed girl, quite petite, and she outsprinted Rebecca Twigg of the USA to win the 1983 World Championships in Switzerland, in Zurich. The course itself has 2 quite difficult climbs. Now, we'll probably refer to them as the sprinters' climb because the first very serious climb is short but very steep. They will climb something like 48 metres in a very short distance, and this possibly is a sprinter's climb because it's short enough to allow the sprinters to go into oxygen debt and to stay into contact with the main road riders as they go over the top.
The 2 American girls you can see there, Dick, 43 is Parks and 44 is Thompson, and the American team is a formidable one in this competition.
Yes, the Americans were mainly responsible for getting the women's road race on the Olympic calendar. They've won something like 24 World Championship medals in the past 6 or 7 years, and from 1981 they lobbied the IOC very hard to get the women's road race included on the calendar. They've gone into the race with undoubtedly the favourite, Connie Carpenter. She'll be carrying number 42. Her full name is in fact Connie Carpenter Finney because she's married to one of the USA's top men cyclists, Davis Finney, and you'll see her number 42. Possibly the 2 girls you're seeing there, 43 and 44, they will be sent out the front to keep any breakaway moves covered early in the race. And this, in fact, is the big question in America, whether the American girls are going to ride as a team. Their 2 favourites, Rebecca Twigg and Connie Carpenter, haven't got on too well in the past. And the big question was going to be whether they would sacrifice each other's chance. Now, there you see Connie Carpenter right in the centre of the picture. She'd be quite easy to pick up. Quite a tall girl, sharp-featured, sandy hair. There she is, number 42, Connie Carpenter.
The girl out in front is an interesting one too, Dick. That's Maria Canins of Italy, a very well-performed road cyclist. She's 35 years of age now, was a late starter in the sport at the age of 33, but in her second year of competition finished 2nd in the World Road Championship. So Maria Canins, that's number 28, who was leading the field in the last close shot that we had of the leaders. is obviously going to be a competitor to watch.
Now, they actually have crested a small rise. They drop down here, and they in fact do quite some descending down to a low point on the circuit. In fact, they go down to an elevation above sea level of 220 metres, and then they will climb some 48 metres over a very short distance. And Maria Cunnins is the one that we would expect to go to the front in these climbs. In fact, there she is. She's got a formidable reputation as a hill climber. At 35 years of age, it's quite remarkable. She's a mother of a 6-year-old daughter. And she has really, well, she is expected to try to cut them apart on the hills.
You're talking about her ability going up hills, Dick. She's a former international downhill skier, so she's probably going to have a little bit of form going downhill as well. And it's interesting to note the number of cyclists that are competing at these games or internationally at the moment who have previously arranged their own reputations, if you like, in international skiing or skating. So obviously there is some corollary between the two sports.
Yes, in particular speed skating seems to develop the same leg muscle groups as cycling, and there's been a number of very notable transitions. Eric Heiden, probably the most notable, straight from world speed skater to world-class cyclist. And I'm going to swoop around to the bottom of the dip now, and I think that they'll shortly be starting on this climb. And as you can see, it's still the Italian girl leading the way, looking to control the pace as they start to climb this very steep hill. You probably see many of them reach down to the gear levers shortly to adjust the gear ratios on their bikes. They'll probably be riding at least 12 speed gears and possibly 14. And now you can see all out of the saddle, and Cunnins is really starting to give them some curry on this very first circuit.
How long would you expect it to be? How far into the race, Dick, before we see the first breakaway?
I think that possibly they'll try to sort them out early, but there wouldn't be any serious breakaways until possibly about the third lap. The race is, of course, 5 laps of the circuit, and I would think that after 3 laps they'll be down to a pretty basic grouping, and anything could take place then. I would expect that Cunnins would try to get away from the other girls, because certainly the current world champion, Berglund of Sweden, has a reputation as a sprinter, as has Rebecca Twigg of the United States. And Cunnins' only real chance is to make sure that they're not there as they swing into that final sprint. You've
already intimated that although this is an individual race, team racing plays a very crucial role in it.
Yes, indeed, because in an event such as this, in many ways it's called a lottery. One single mistake, a puncture or a mistake of tactics, and you've lost the race and you've lost the Olympic gold medal. In many cycling events, of course, races are run over stages, and the mistakes aren't quite so important.
The rider in second position at the moment is one of the West Germans, Gabrielle Altweg, number 16. There you can see her now. She's right on Cunnins' wheel, and is obviously determined not to let her get out of touch with the field. Cunnins just checking back to make sure that she's got the bulk of them covered at the moment, and that she has as she makes her way to the top of that hill.
From here, depending on the position of our camera, we may get a shot looking down over Lake Viejo. It's a very picturesque setting out here. Dormitory suburb, and in many ways rivaling Silicon Valley as the residence of some very, very executive types. There's Lake Viejo over there. They'll sweep down this descent now and come down to a sharp right-hander when they'll sweep onto Marguerite, and then that's a further long descent right down to the lowest point of the circuit.
Mission Viejo, in fact, is probably better known to the Australian swimming fraternity than it is to the Australian cycling fraternity, because it is also the home of one of America's most famous swimming centres, the United States' most famous swimming centres, at which many Australian Olympic swimmers have spent time, including our swimming commentator at the moment in Mark Tonelli.
Here they go, round that first very fast right-hander, and it's Connie Carpenter who, as you saw, was close enough in the ascent of that steep pinch to then take the lead as they came down the descent. They would have been travelling at something like 80 kilometres an hour as they came down that part of the descent, and sweeping around that that sharp right-hander, now going into a long further descent down past the Mission Viejo pool.
Yes, the pool is in the foreground, in fact. Not that it's relevant as far as this event's concerned, although I'm sure many of them will probably appreciate a swim in it when it's finished. Very warm conditions forecast today, although it is cooler than it was yesterday, and they will appreciate that. 42 is Connie Carpenter from the United States of America.
And 14 is Jeannie Longo. Now, Jeannie Longo, the French girl, is one of the favourite contestants because she finished fourth in the last World Championship, in the 1983 World Championship. And in fact was expected to do somewhat better than that. Made a mistake of judgment in the final sprint in. Jeannie Longo right there in the foreground is another of the 4 or 5 girls that we would expect to sort themselves out from the rest of the field as they get towards the most punishing 3rd or 4th laps.
Still, as you can see, only 100 metres covering the entire field in the women's road race, the first ever cycling event held in the Olympic Games, and probably it will be the first gold medal decided at the 23rd Olympiad. As the field goes around towards the end of the first lap at Mission Viejo, we take a commercial break. Yes, thanks, Bob, and a very interesting situation developing here as the cyclists, as Bob told you, come down towards the halfway mark in the women's road race. We have a breakaway group of approximately 6 riders, although it seems to have changed. No, it's still 6 riders out in front, and that comprises 2 Americans, Rebecca Twigg and Connie Carpenter. They're the country that is most strongly represented in this breakaway group. We have Longo from France up there, Larsen from Norway, Schumacher from West Germany, and that comprises the leading group at the moment. With half the race completed, this break could in fact be significant, and it's been a very interesting race so far, Dick.
Indeed it has. In the early part of the race, Maria Canons of Italy, the renowned hill climber of the group, she literally cut them to pieces on those first 2 laps. However, it was significant that as they climbed the long drag on the second lap, Connie Carpenter, the favourite in the race, the USA girl who was expected to win the first gold medal for America since 1912 in cycling, she attacked near the top of the hill, and I think that's very significant because Carpenter certainly showed Canons that she's a very proficient hill climber. These 6 girls have settled down now because this is the long drag at the back of the course with now half the distance completed, and the fact that there are still 2 American girls there with the British sprint champion also is significant. Rebecca Twigg on the over on the left of the picture there on the inside of the road, and Connie Carpenter at the rear looking back over the shoulder to make sure where the rest of the field are, and she's then following through Canons, the Italian girl, who, as I said, in the early part of the race at least, was literally cutting them to pieces. They covered the first lap of the distance in 25 minutes. The second lap was somewhat slower in 26 minutes. Significant, therefore, that on this 3rd lap they've separated, and therefore I would expect that the bunch is going to get very much smaller as they get to the completion of this lap.
Comments there from Dick Plug. So just after the halfway point in the women's individual road race, Schumacher is the leader from West Germany. She's the rider in your picture at the moment. Not far behind her is Longo of France, and they're the 2 leaders in a leading group of 6 riders who have established quite a break over the remainder of the field. We'll be back for further reports towards the end of the race. In the meantime, we'll take a break. Yes, thanks, Bob. Well, we're poised for a very exciting finish in the women's road race. A leading group of 6 riders have cleared out to a lead of over 2 minutes from the main bunch, and that is the leading group. You can see they're into the last lap, the 5th and final lap, so they have something like about 14.5 kilometres to ride in the first women's cycling event ever held in the Olympic Games. There are still 2 Americans in that leading bunch, so perhaps they're going to make history, not only for themselves but for their country. Also there with them, Carpenter Finney and Twigg are the 2 Americans in the leading bunch. Also there with them is Longo from France, Schumacher from West Germany, and Canons from Italy. Canons was the rider who fell just after the halfway point of the race. She made a very quick recovery to get back into the saddle, and in no time at all had picked up the leaders and is now back amongst that leading bunch of 6. But we're only about 1.5 to 2 kilometres into the 5th and final circuit, and quite obviously it's going to be a very stirring finish to this women's individual road race.
Indeed, I think this is where the winning move will come if it's going to be other than a sprint finish, because Canons is the one who has the reputation on the climbs. Now, the one they're about to start climbing now is a very short, sharp climb. It's almost a sprinter's climb because they're able to perhaps even lose contact near the top but still recover their ground down the other side. Rebecca Twigg made the attack on the previous lap and in fact opened up some 300 metres gap just as they crossed the line with 4 laps to at least with 2 laps to go, and she was able to stay away until the top of this particular climb before she was recovered. I think the significant point in the bike race at this stage is the rider on the tail of this group that you can see now, Connie Carpenter Finney, was able to sit back and let the others recover the ground that Twigg had opened up. Connie Carpenter Finney, the current world women's pursuit champion, is the favourite for this event. You can see as they make this sharp left-hand turn, the climb will in fact get steeper, and Carpenter Finney looks to me to be sitting down at the rear of the field with plenty in hand, and I do believe that she's going to make sure that she covers Cummins, the Italian girl, should Cummins endeavour to make a breakaway move on either this steep climb here or more likely the long drag at the halfway point and beyond on this, the final lap. That's Schumacher, the West German girl, climbing. All the riders are dragged out of the saddle by this very steep incline. Schumacher, in fact, putting plenty of pressure on. Cummins is the one on the outside. Larson is going with her, and down the back, the two American girls. On the left of screen is Twigg, and on the right is Carpenter Finney.
The notable absentee from the group, as we've commented several times, is Marianne Berglund from Sweden, who is the current world road race champion, but she is completely out of contention at this stage, with the gap between the leading bunch and the main bunch now well over 2 minutes. So the winner is obviously going to come from one of these 6 riders. Schumacher is the rider who's making the effort and taking the initiative, going up this very short, sharp incline. And then Carnens is alongside her on the left, with Larson alongside her on the right. And there you can see the girls working very hard as they go up this steep hill that could perhaps prove to be a significant point in the race. Now 3 girls, Larson is one.
Cummins is
the other, and one of the American girls, and it looks as though it may be Carpenter.
Yes, it is, because Twigg was having some difficulty as they topped that rise. Twigg, in fact, starting to lose contact. Now they sweep down this descent. You'll see all the girls go for the gear levers to go into that big ratio, and probably soon they'll crouch down over the bars to streamline the body as they head down towards Lake Viejo. And now the other 3 girls getting back into contact as they make this long sweep downhill.
A very picturesque course here at Lake Mission Viejo, and that's the lake you can see in the left background. It's one long, strong climb to come at the back of the course, and if this bunch is still together, perhaps that's the hill that could be decisive, because Maria Carnens has shown a willingness to attack this longer hill, and each time they've gone around it so far, she's been able to head the bunch up towards the top of that climb.
Brakes on as they sweep around that right-hander. They go down a continuing descent now, right along Marguerite, which is a couple of miles, and then they reach the bottom corner of the circuit as they make a sharp left hand onto La Paz, which is the start of the last climb of the race. So America looking to come from their position at the bottom of the Olympic medals table in cycling at the moment, having only won a bronze medal in 1912. America now looking with 2 in the leading group to go straight to the top of the Olympic medals table for 1984.
That's Longeau from France as the leading bunch go down towards the halfway mark. 42 is Carpenter Finney from the United States. 35 is Larson from Norway. Then we have Carnens from Italy. And the rider there, just going through that rider there, is Twigg from the United States. And they're the leading bunch as they go down towards the halfway mark on the course, which means they will have half a lap left to go in the women's individual road race. So we'll leave our coverage there for the time being and be back for the finish. In the meantime, we take a break.
The United States of America, who is leading them down with only a few kilometres to go in this, the final of the 1984 Women's Olympic Road Cycling Race. The leading group of 6 riders are Rebecca Twigg of USA, Connie Carpenter Finney of USA, Ginny Longeau of France. In the red colours of Norway is Larson, and the other girl is Maria Carnens of Italy.
Gee, haven't we seen Carnens in trouble during the course of this race? The Italian, who's in the back of your picture at the moment, fell during the 3rd lap, and just a few moments ago she lost her foot on the pedal, and the Larson in particular, the girl riding alongside her there, was quick to pounce. They tried to capitalise on that. That's Carnens, in fact, number 28, and that's Longeau alongside Larson. But they were quick to pounce and tried to discard Maria Carnens, but they've been unsuccessful again. She's a very determined type, the 35-year-old Italian, and she's still with them as they make this long climb at the back of the course. It's some 4 or 5 kilometres in length. Once they actually complete the climb and get to the highest point on the course, they'll then have about 1.3 kilometres to go to the finish, and it would seem at this stage as though it's going to be a real sprint between these 6 girls.
Yes, it does appear that Rebecca Twigg would have to be considered favourite, although it was interesting that the only girl that we perhaps didn't expect to be there at this stage of the race is Larsen of Norway. She's not one of the top favourites in the event, but she was the one to very quickly respond on 2 occasions. In about the halfway point, when Schumacher of West Germany and Carnens collided. Carnens went down. Fortunately, they weren't travelling very fast, and Carnens was not hurt and was able to regain her bicycle quickly. But it was on that occasion Larsen who launched the attack immediately, made it pretty difficult for Carnens to regain, but she did so. And again on the second occasion that Carnens endeavoured to attack, pulled the foot out of the toe clip, and of course had to recover that. Again, it was Larsen who was very quick to respond. Now that usually signifies that she's the one that's feeling quite good at the moment. Rebecca Twigg of the United States, the runner-up in the 1983 World Championship, is reputed to have the best sprint of any of the girls, and you'll be able to pick her up quite easily. She has the smallest stature on the bike. Connie Carpenter Finney has gone into the race as favourite. The American girl is quite a tall girl, reddish hair, and in fact the Connie Carpenter Finney is out of picture. That is Jeannie Longeau of France leading away from Twigg, then further back to Larsen and Schumacher, then Carnens, and yet to come into the picture is Connie Carpenter Finney.
They're the leading 6 riders as they come down with probably only about 3 kilometres to ride now in the women's individual road race. The first women's cycling event ever held in the Olympic Games, and now they're starting to make the break. That's Carnens who's taken the lead, and going with her was Connie Carpenter Finney from the United States, but the others were quick to realise that those two were going to try and set the pace as they get into single file and work their way up this hill. It's Carnens from Italy, followed by Carpenter Finney of the United States, Larsen of Norway, Schumacher of West Germany, then Twigg of the United States, and on the back at the moment it's Longeau from France.
And significant that Carpenter Finney is sitting there on the tops of the bars. She launched that counter-attack, was able to chase Carnens, still sitting up on the top of the bars, and that indicates she's feeling pretty comfortable at the moment. Now we're only some kilometre, or at least less than probably a kilometre. We're trying to pick up the point on the circuit, but Carpenter Finney obviously feeling well and looking at this stage a real favourite to take out the first gold medal of the cycling in 1984. That's Rebecca Twigg has now moved to the front. She's followed by Schumacher of West Germany. On the inside, penned up with nowhere to go, is the French girl Longeau, and down the back of the field again is Maria Carnens. In fact, Carnens is waving the hand at Longeau, looking for some sort of support. Twigg it is who looks over the shoulder as they're preparing to make the sprint in now. Twigg, and on the outside is Carpenter Finney.
Well, this is a real test of strength and endurance, obviously, but there's a complex game of mental gymnastics going on at the moment as Carnens attempts to make another dash, another sprint, and away she goes, giving chases, it looks like Schumacher of West Germany. Then we come back to the 2 Americans, Twigg and Carpenter Finney, and tailing off behind them would be Larsen of Norway and Longeau of France.
They're in sight of the finish now. The girls are able to see the finish. They're all going for the big chain wheel. You see the hands go down to put it into the big ratio as Carnens is out of the saddle again. Schumacher is following the wheel. Then further back to it would be Twigg and Carpenter Finney, and on the back of the field is Larsen. But Carnens has got them stretched out now. Schumacher is the one that's going for the doctor.
This is going to be a thrilling finish. Schumacher, and coming up on the outside, that's the 2 American girls. It looks like Twigg who's in front. Twigg is just coming across the line. A great finish between the 2 American girls. It looks like Carpenter Finney has acknowledged that Twigg may have won it. Carpenter Finney was on the left of your picture. Twigg was on the right, but certainly it's first and second to America. Carpenter Finney now waving. Perhaps she's acknowledging to the crowd that she has in fact won it. But gee, that was close, and it was a very awkward angle to try and pick a winner head on. It would have given us a little bit of assistance perhaps if they could have gone to the side of the track.
Twigg's getting the cooling down. Here's a close-up of the finish, and on the inside is Twigg. On the left of the screen is Carpenter, and Carpenter looks like she's taken the gold medal, throws for the line, and Connie Carpenter Finney has taken the gold medal from Rebecca Twigg.
There you see Connie Carpenter Finney, the winner of the women's individual road race. She is the first ever Olympic gold medalist in cycling, the first ever woman Olympic gold medalist in cycling. And perhaps later in the Olympic cycling program, her husband, Davis, can emulate or repeat that performance for the Finney family. But here again is another look at the finish.
On the right of the screen is Rebecca Twigg. On the left of the screen, Connie Carpenter Finney. And Connie Carpenter Finney getting up in the shadow of the post to throw the bicycle at the line and take the gold medal.
with second going to, that's Connie Carpenter Finney, the winner of the women's individual road race. Second place going to the other American, Rebecca Twigg. Cycling gold medal for women is about to be presented on the Mission Viejo road race course, about 70 kilometres south of Los Angeles. We've just seen the completion of the women's road race, a very thrilling finish with a good result for the United States, winning their first Olympic medal, gold medal, since 1912 at Stockholm. And it's been won by Connie Carpenter Finney from her teammate Rebecca Twigg. We saw that very exciting finish with Finney just getting across the line inches in front of Twigg, and Sandra Schumacher from West Germany has finished third. This will be the first gold medal presented at the 1984 Olympic Games here in Los Angeles, and so I guess it's appropriate in some ways that it should go to an American cyclist, or to an American full stop. Connie Carpenter Finney, the winner at the recent American trials at Spokane in Washington. She won one of the 3 distance road races. The other 2 were won by Rebecca Twigg, so she reversed the trend at those trials, did Finney, and has come out on top in the most important race of the year.
It's a tremendous triumph for Connie Carpenter Finney. In fact, in January 1983, she had to undergo knee surgery, an injury caused apparently by switching bicycles in the middle of the season. And she, in fact, underwent that knee surgery, made a comeback, and indicated quite early in the season that by the time of the Olympics she intended to have some 6,000 miles in training in her legs before the Olympic road race took place. So Connie Carpenter Finney, and of course the hyphenation is because she is married to Davis Finney, who will be taking his place in the Olympic men's road race to follow this event.
Wouldn't that be a magnificent family double if he was able to reproduce the performance that his wife's just produced, and take out the gold medal in the men's road race, which is due to start incidentally in just 40 minutes from now. That's a 190 kilometre race, 12 laps of this fairly demanding Mission Viejo circuit. The medalists have been assembled.
One rider and one vehicle.
Reminding you that the margin was something like a quarter of a wheel. After 80 kilometres of racing, Connie Carpenter Finney was successful by only a quarter of a wheel. The stragglers still coming in after this very demanding 80 kilometres of racing. 1/4 of a wheel, the difference between the gold and the silver, and the 27-year-old Connie Carpenter Finney has defeated the 21-year-old Rebecca Twigg.
Well, it's a spectacular sight on the Lake Mission Viejo circuit, as you can see, with the Eagle standing proudly. I think that's what it is. But there seems to be some delay. They are obviously still waiting for the stragglers. We were advised that the medal presentation, a very historic medal presentation, was about to take place. We'll keep an eye on that situation. In the meantime, we'll return you to Bob Harnett in the studio. The Olympic Games, the first women's cycling gold medal is just about to be presented. The first women's cycling event ever contested, the individual road race. And what an outstanding result for the United States in the first final, if we can call it that, on the 1984 Olympic program. They finished first and second. And the winner is Connie Carpenter Finney from the United States. She receives the first ever gold medal presented to a woman cyclist in the history of the Olympic Games. She looks very pleased, as well she might. A former Olympic speed skater who changed to cycling, or converted to cycling. Finishing second, another of the American representatives, Rebecca Twigg, the lady who has dominated American cycling until Connie Carpenter arrived on the scene. Rebecca Twigg was the 1982 World Pursuit Champion. She was runner-up in the road race in the World Championships last year. So she would no doubt be a little bit disappointed to have been beaten by such a narrow margin by her compatriot. And the bronze medal in the women's road race goes to Sandra Schumacher of West Germany.